Hi, I'm Liv, and welcome back to the Book Nook. Hey guys, so I'm back with my February haul. It's another big one, let's get cracking. First up, some proofs that I've been sent, firstly from the lovely guys at Picador. They sent me a copy of Bleaker House by Nell Stevens, so this is the paperback copy. It's bluer than that, but the light that I've got there makes it look a bit washy-washy. This is non-fiction, and it is about Nell Stevens when she travelled to Bleaker Island in the Falklands, population 2, to write a novel, and it's just about loneliness and creativity, and she ended up not writing a novel, ended up writing this. I was really intrigued by this when it came out in hardback. I think it was like a BBC book at bedtime or something like that, one of those, and I was really intrigued, so huge thanks to Picador for sending me a copy of this one. I was also sent a couple of books by the lovely guys at Fourth Estate. The first one is Elephant by Martin Suter. So this is a proof copy. This is a book that has been published in Germany, I think, and is like a huge bestseller in there. And Martin Suter was born in Zurich in 1948. I'm not sure when this one was originally published in Germany, but it looks absolutely fantastic. It is essentially a guy who lives on the streets of Zurich and is decidedly down on his luck, and he's hallucinating a tiny pink glowing elephant. And what would you do if you saw the pink elephant, and how does his life change with the pink elephant? So yeah, I'm pretty sure this one will be right up my street. Also from Fourth Estate is Hold by Michael Donkor. This is one I've heard various bits about, and I'm quite excited to give this one a go. It's about 3 different girls who have all got sort of connections to Ghana and Brixton. 2 of them live out in Ghana, and then one of them is a Ghanaian family living in Brixton, and she's a teenage girl, and she's always been the sort of pride and joy, and she starts becoming a bit of a sulky teenager. So one of the other girls, who is meant to be a good example, is summoned over from Ghana to sort of be friends with her and show her how to be a good girl. And yeah, it's meant to look at sort of femininity in African families and the sort of culture divide between Ghana and Brixton, and that's quite fascinating, so really excited to give this one a go. Then a couple more bargain basement buys that I purchased this month. First one's The Gathering by Anne Enright. I've never read this one. One of my colleagues at work, Andy, has read this one and says it's absolutely fantastic. I have read... What's the one I've read? The one that was up for the Baileys a few years back. Is it Baileys or Man Booker? Oh, I can't remember. I can see the cover in my head. And there was another one about an Irish family. I can't for the life of me remember. The Green Road, there we go. So yeah, really excited to give this one a go. I've heard really good things about it from Andy, he keeps telling me about it. So yep, gonna give that a go. Also picked up a copy of Notes from an Exhibition by Patrick Gale. I have never read any Patrick Gale, for shame. And there's been a lot of talk about his new one coming out, and I've always thought he's a writer that I'd like to try, so I thought I would go for Notes from an Exhibition, which is one, from what I can tell, about an artist who's sort of a bit of an enigma to her husband and children and is found dead, and yeah, so another one that looks at sort of creativity, I think, looks really interesting. Next up, a couple of collections of poetry. First one is Ollie Hazard's Blotter. This one just looks really interesting. I am going to read the bit from the inside the flap here. Ollie Hazard's Blotter consists of 5 sequences, each constructed using a different process. In Gregson, oh dear, Sidfordin? Notes on hill walking in the Welsh marshes. See, there was no chance of me doing that right, was there? The poet's former home alternate with found text taken from an online walking forum. Blotter is a shepherd's calendar of sonnets composed of Russian spambot script, a mix of lifestyle advice, gaming tips, authoritarian propaganda, bucolic fragments, and apocalyptic messages. Within Habit is a series of prose poems collaged from numerous sources. March and May comprises parallel columns of verse. Or As is a family of 81 17-syllable poems, each one an erasure of the corresponding page in a different book the poet was writing alongside Blotter. Yes, this book of poetry could not be further up my street if it was my garden gate. That was a really mixed metaphor, but basically, yes. The second poetry book I picked up is Verse Matters, and this is an anthology published by Valley Press that looks at the importance of contemporary poetry, and you've got people in there like Liz Berry, Malika Booker, Harling Manish, Saj Murray, Debiji Chatterjee, and Helen Mort as well, so really excited for that one. Then I actually picked up a kid's book from work that I'd seen and looked really cute and I really wanted to give a go, and that is The Wild Robot by Peter Brown. When Robot Roz opens her eyes for the first time, she discovers she is alone on a remote, wild island. She has no idea how she got there or what her purpose is, but she thinks she knows she needs to survive. But as Roz slowly befriends the animals, the island starts to feel like home, until one day, her mysterious past comes back to haunt her. So this just looks really sweet. It looked like a bit of a mix of sort of maybe the Iron Man, and it did, visually, it has reminded me of Pax. The illustrations in there are sort of Pax-like in a way, but also not. So it just, I mean... So yeah, this is just something I think I'm going to curl up with of an evening and feel like a kid again. Then I picked up another Yob book, very much indeed, another Yob book at 1,000 and something pages. I hadn't actually looked at that. But this year may actually be the year that I really quite fall in love with Stephen King. So I picked up myself a copy of The Stand. And when I say Yob, so I really enjoyed 11/22/63. I've got a copy of Misery on my shelf. I'm still not sure I'm going to go down his sort of more typical horror elements, but there are a few that I'm really intrigued by. And The Stand, first come the days of the plague, then come the dreams. Dreams that warn of the coming of the dark man, the apostate of death, his worn-down boot heels tramping the right roads, the warlord of the Charnel House and prince of evil. His time is at hand, his empire grows in the west, and the apocalypse looms. I'm down for that, even if it is, you know, about as thick as my arm. So yeah, that was something I didn't necessarily see coming so far this year. The Stephen King year, but there we go. Then I picked up a book of non-fiction that I was really intrigued by, Deaths of the Poets, by Paul Farley and Michael Simmons Roberts. Michael Simmons Roberts is someone whose poetry, I read one of his collections, I've forgotten which one, and absolutely loved it. And this is essentially a look at deaths of poets. From Dylan Thomas's 18 Straight Whiskies to Sylvia Plath's desperate suicide in the gas oven of her Primrose Hill kitchen, from Chatterton's pre-Raphaelite demise to Keats's death warrant in a smudge of arterial blood, the deaths of poets have often cast a backwards shadow on their work. So it's looking at sort of the impact of poets' deaths on their work and how they're sort of enshrined in this sort of mystery and mythicality because of that. And yeah, just looks absolutely fantastic and kind of my thing. Then another bit of non-fiction is a book that was recommended to me by one of my colleagues, the very lovely Megan, who has been reading this one recently, The Living Mountain by Nan Shepherd. I've never read any Nan Shepherd. I've always meant to read The Living Mountain, and she talks about this one for our last podcast at work, and I was just sold listening to her talk about it then, so I went and bought myself a copy that same day. So it's Nan Shepherd describing her journeys into the Cairngorm Mountains in Scotland, and it's just sort of an interaction with the natural world, and sort of vaguely, from what Megan was saying, vaguely sort of spiritual, but not spiritual in a kind of way, spiritual in a kind of getting in touch with nature and humanity kind of way, which I can get on board with. So yeah, very excited about this one. You guys know how much I love Scotland and kind of wish I was Scottish or lived there, and I want to go to the Cairngorms one day, so done. Also at the tail end of last month I picked myself up the latest copy of Granta magazine, Animalia. This is issue 142. There's some really interesting looking authors in there, some names that I have sort of always meant to get around to reading bits of, and also one of my ex-poetry lecturers at the University of Greenwich, Emily Critchley, is in there as well, so I thought, why not? I say ex-lecturers, like she left. She's still there. I left. I mean, I graduated. I left in the good way. Then I picked up a copy of one of the new Penguin Classics books that they're bringing out that, along the same lines, they're bringing out Yoko Tsushima's Territory of Light, and this is, I think, the sort of series just before that, as it were. And that's Alfred Derplin's Berlin Alexanderplatz. Now, this one just caught my eye when it came in the delivery. Again, the perils of working in a bookshop. And it's a novel that was written in Germany in 1929 and published and had a lot of fame, but not quite in Berlin, because Doblin was a Jew who had left Germany the day after the Reichstag fire, so it didn't quite take off there. But it just looks really, really intriguing. It's about a guy who's on the streets of Berlin, and he's determined to go straight after a stint in prison, finds himself thwarted by an unpredictable external agency that looks an awful lot like fate. And it's sort of like a collage of newspaper stories, biblical stories, drinking songs, urban slang, things like this. It looks very much my kind of thing. Since buying it, I've seen a few articles about it and a few things on Twitter, which always makes me feel like yay when I see things after I've bought a thing, because it's like, I'm on it. Then, because we're heading into spring and my complicated relationship with Carl Ove Knausgaard shows no sign of abating, I picked up Spring by Carl Ove Knausgaard. We knew it was going to happen, didn't we? So this one's actually a novel, bit of a departure from winter and summer. Is it winter and summer we've had? Autumn and winter. Well done, come on. So yeah, this is a novel rather than sort of collection of fragments. So a bit of a departure, but intrigued to see how this one turns out. I have still got to read Winter. I need to get wiggle on with that. I also picked up a book that has been sort of much talked about on its release, and I thought, oh, why not? Let's give it a go. And that's The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. So it's a thriller about a woman who... ooh, bookmark. It's essentially about a woman who ostensibly sees a murder from a window, and it sort of goes into sort of her life. I think she's got some problems with alcohol and things like that. So it's meant to be better than Girl on a Train and all those sorts of things. So I was a little bit dubious, but the other week when I was starting to feel ill, I thought, you know what, I just want a thriller to read. I want something like this to get my teeth into. As it was, I then read Anatomy of a Scandal instead by Sarah K. Vaughan, which was really good, and I'll link below where I talk about that one. And it's actually very exciting. I'm going to be doing an event with Sarah K. Vaughan and Erin Kelly talking about sex and consent and power in crime writing in April, which I will talk more about another time, which is very, very exciting. But yeah, A Woman in the Window. I bought this one thinking I was going to get my teeth into it, but I didn't at the time. But yeah, I'll give this one a go. Then I also bought myself a copy of a book that came into work that is absolutely gorgeous and has a bit of a local connection as well, and that is A Black Fox Running by Brian Carter. Now, this is a reissue by Bloomsbury. Brian Carter himself is unfortunately no longer with us, but Melissa Harrison, author of At Hawthorne Time and Rain, an anthology of walks in Season of Rain, I think that's the name of it, I get it confused, and this is the book that Melissa Harrison credits with sort of helping her become a writer, or the reason she is a writer. And this was a bit of a project for her to get this reissued. It's sort of a lost nature novel. This is the story of Wolfgar, the dark-furred fox of Dartmoor, and his nemesis Scoble the Trapper, in the seasons leading up to the pitiless winter of 1947. As breathtaking in its descriptions of the natural world as it is perceptive in its portrayal of damaged humanity, it is both a portrait of a place and a gripping story of survival. Traversing the worlds of animals and men, Brian Carter's A Black Fox Running is a masterpiece, lyrical, unforgiving, and unforgettable. So obviously, as this one is set on Dartmoor, there is that local connection for us here in the southwest, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. You can sort of see with my light here, it's this gold sort of foiling in these sort of hawthorns and bracken, and it's absolutely gorgeous. So I obviously didn't read this one during February because of February, but I am going to read this one, I think, after the book I'm currently reading, and I'm very excited. Then, it'll come as a shock to absolutely no one, I bought myself a few of the new Penguin Modern Pocket Classics. Penguin Modern Pocket Classics? Penguin Pocket Modern Classics? I don't really know. But I bought myself a few of these. I'm not going to go through sort of like the blurbs for each of them, but I went for Audre Lorde's The Master's Tools Will Never Dismantle the Master's House, Francois Sagan's The Gigolo, Fernando Pessoa's I Have More Souls Than One, Leonora Carrington's The Skeleton's Holiday, Susan Sontag's Notes on Camp, Kathy Acker's New York City in 1979, Anna Nin's The Veiled Woman, and that's it. I thought there was one more. But yes, I say I thought there was one more because I've got my eye on like all of them. So yeah, I bought myself a few of those. Those have been flying off the shelf since they've come in. People are really loving them, and they're really such a good way to sort of get into writers that you wouldn't necessarily have sort of read before, or you've been a little unsure of, or you've not been sure where to sort of start with their writing. They're really good little things, and well done to Penguin for doing those. Then the last book I bought in February, and it was the last book that I bought in February because it was released on the 28th of February, that is Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls 2. I don't think I need to say much more about this one. This is a second volume of stories for girls about women throughout history who deserve to have the spotlight shone on them, and as Alice Slater put it, now with 100% less Tories and 100% more Beyonce. And that's a world we'd all like to live in, I think. So yeah, that is my February haul. I seem to be in some subconscious competition with myself to see if I can top the last haul with the amount of books. I'm not even counting them because I'll cry. So yeah, have a little chat with me in the comments below if you have read any of these books, if you're thinking of reading any of these books, if you weren't before but you are now, or if you were both, I don't know. Just have a little chat with me in the comments below about all things bookish. I have decided that as I've been ill and fuzzy, I'm going to extend the opportunity for the giveaway for a copy of The Early King and the Kid in Yellow by Danny Denton and Ali Smith's Girl Meets Boy until Monday the 12th of March, so I will link below to the video on which you need to comment, and just comment with one of your sort of guilty pleasures or a book that you don't get to talk about much that you love, and I shall enter you into that, and then on the 12th I shall sort of say who has won that and get that all sorted. So yeah. Also, just want to say at the end of this video, a huge congratulations to Simon Savage, who has just got married. It looks like it was a lovely, lovely day, and I'm glad the snow didn't ruin it too much. And I wish you and Chris all the best. And yeah. So yeah, thanks very much, guys. I shall see you next time. Goodbye.